operate in truth, right? Operate in truth. Tell the truth.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Gator Truth Florida Football Podcast. I'm Daniel, and on this episode, we're going to take a look at the Gators' 41-17 defeat to the Miami Hurricanes this past Saturday. And I do want to first congratulate the Hurricanes on being able to take your team to the next level and jump from years 2 to 3 in a way that the Gators have not. And I know in the preseason, I believed we'd see a lot of things that we didn't, and we'll get into them, whether it's seeing more of Russ Callaway's fingerprints on the offense. I didn't really see too much of that. I didn't really see much of a quick passing game at times, which is one thing I'd harped on. And we didn't really see as much defensive improvement as we thought we would, even with just little things like players going from true freshmen to being sophomore. So it was really an interesting day in the swamp. Never want to be blown out, much less at home. Those who listened to the season preview episode, you saw me say one of my criteria is that UF is not going to be blown out in year 3 for me to find it a successful year. And here we are, game 1, we don't even check that box. A lot of people I've seen say that against Miami, they could have lived with a close loss. Now, personally, I picked Florida over Miami. I said it was a must win. I did pick a close win for Florida. Unfortunately, I was wrong. And I'll admit that for a lot of different reasons, some of which I said. I had actually said to someone before the game, I said, there is a chance that if we don't stop the run, and of course, we'll get into different the 3 keys for offense and defense I got to as we review. But I said to someone, if we don't stop this run, I could see Miami blowing us out. And of course, I didn't think we'd quite, go down that path. Unfortunately, we did go down that path. Unfortunately, had problems with the run. And again, as we go through, I'm going to look at the keys add for the game, where we succeeded, where we didn't, and definitely talk about what I feel going forward. Some of you did see the 5-minute live stream I did from RV City after the game. And if you did, great. If you didn't, that's fine. Hopefully I do better live streams, not just on wins, but win or lose afterwards. And usually I hopefully won't be walking from the swamp to Condren. The baseball stadium, for those of you that have been on campus, that is quite a walk right before I do a live. And unfortunately, I had to kind of pack up and leave shortly after. So I do apologize for the briefness of that. But before we get into it, I do want to give a shout out to my friends over at Alvarez Lawn Company. If you are in the Central Florida area, heck, if you're one of those basement dwellers in the Central Florida area, as kind of was implied by our head coach in today's press conference today, as in this is being recorded on Monday, Labor Day. If you're in that Central Florida area, you're in your basement or you're not, and you want to have a piece of lawn work done, and you're like, you know what, I don't want to do it. I want to stay in my basement or in my house or, whatever, because most Florida homes don't have basements. Give my friends at Alvarez Lawn Company a call. You can call them or shoot them a text for a free quote at 407-490-2617. And also, hey, if you don't want to text or call, shoot them an email at alvarezlawncompany@gmail.com. Once again, that number is 407-490-2617 that you can call for a free quote. And if you don't want to text or call and you need yard work done, you can also shoot them an email at alvarezlawncompany@gmail.com. Alvarez Lawn Company, building plans that work for you. Okay, we're going to go ahead. We're going to get into it and talk a little bit about the offense. And of course, I had 3 keys for the offense in this Miami game. The first one was to give Mertz time. The second one was to get Wilson the ball early and often, and we'll get to that. And then we're also going to talk about the need to get vertical. And the first key here, giving Mertz time. And I've got my notes if you see me looking down. We really didn't do that well at all. There were times that we did give him time, and we'll talk about that. But many times we did see lots of pressure, and sometimes he got knocked down, and that's not good. We don't want to, we don't want to see that on our team. Of course, we had pressure on 38% of dropbacks. Just to put that in perspective, that's about what we had year one under Billy Napier. And here we are, first game of year 3 against another third-year school, and almost 4 out of 10 dropbacks. You're having pressure. Of course, you don't want to see that. It does cause a QB to hurry up their clock, does cause them to be more inaccurate, and definitely failed against that Miami, that Miami front, which I was concerned about, and they definitely did what they needed to do. And one guy I had not mentioned, who I do need to really give him credit, was Tyler Barron. 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, a transfer from Tennessee. And I remember in the preseason, a lot of people saying, oh, we're not worried about him because we did really well against him at Tennessee. Well, guess what? He came back to the Swamp, saw a less active Swamp, and I can talk about that too. And had a pretty good day by defensive end standards. But there were times that Graham Mertz did have time and did not deliver the ball. And 2 examples of that, the 2 post routes. Instead of putting the ball and leading the guy on the post route deep, one in the south end zone, the second one in the first one in the south, second one in the north end zone. Both times throws it pretty much to where the receiver is and not where the receiver's going. And with that, the play was missed. And if he just puts it in front of him, and Will Miles over at readandreaction.com did a good job. I haven't really read too many people's stuff about the game, but I did look through his article, and he does have nice little, quick little, I guess you could say, GIFs of certain plays. And those are 2 of them where it's, it's what I'm talking about, where if you throw the ball in front of them, then our receivers run under it, possibly get catch in the end zone for 6, and maybe the game's a little bit different. But when you're throwing it to where the receiver is and not where they're going, especially on a route that's going left to right, you're not going to get that completion. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. And that's one thing we needed to see, was make sure we're hitting balls to back off that Miami defense. And we'll talk about that more when we get into my third key. But overall, again, need to give more time to Mertz. One of our blockers, I believe it was Cam Waits by Pro Football Focus, was given a 0 rating, our right tackle. And of course, that is not a good thing at all. 0, of course, being the lowest that you can get. Not good. Not good at all. But again, there were times, those posts, even the interception Mertz threw on his last play. How many times have we seen a guy in college football stand in the pocket, or in pro football, stand in the pocket knowing they're going to get hit and delivering a strike? And unfortunately, bad read, bad throw, whatever you want to call it, throws a pick on top of getting clobbered and getting injured. Of course, we don't want to see that. And so anyways, let's go ahead. Let's move to my key number 2. And this one really frustrated me. It was get Wilson. And again, we're talking about Trey Wilson, our most dynamic playmaker on offense. Get him the ball early and often. First time he touches the ball, very first play, gets a first down. Then what do? Well, we don't give him the ball again until third down. So a few plays later, but I understand you try different things, right? But then Miami has, and you can watch it, 8 guys lined up on the line of scrimmage all the way across because they know we are not going to get vertical on them, or they're going to play our tendency, which is either run or throw it behind the line. So they play that tendency. Again, 8 guys. Go back, watch it. On the line of scrimmage. Well, of course, they take up all our blockers. And one of their guys who was like 5 yards off the line of scrimmage runs up, ball's caught behind the line, tackles Trey Wilson for a loss. After those 2 touches on the first drive, he only had 3 touches until DJ Lagway came in, and those were few and far between, and definitely need to get him the ball more. I mean, in the preseason, we were told we were going to see DJ Lagway, or not DJ Lagway. Well, we were told we are going to see packages for him. We weren't seeing that, even though Mertz was struggling, but we we're going to get Wilson the ball early and often. And part of that was from Russ Callaway himself. And as you know, I thought Russ Callaway, based on things we had heard and based on things I had heard from players when I asked them myself, we thought we're going to see his fingerprints all over this. I don't see his fingerprints in Trey Wilson getting the ball twice on the first drive and only 3 times on like the next 4-6 drives. And so that's really, really unacceptable. And if you're not getting your playmaker the ball, then you got problems. Meanwhile, Miami had no problem getting the ball to Xavier Restrepo, another one of those players I said watch out for on Miami. He almost got a passing touchdown. Luckily, it did not get completed on a trick play when they're up big, because Mario Cristobal does believe in rivalry games. I'm really not sure that Billy Napier does at this point. I'm not going to rip him as much on this podcast as some are probably hoping, but I will say at this point, you're 1-8 in rivalry games. I don't think you take them seriously, and that is an embarrassment to the University of Florida. But anyways, Restrepo had 7 receptions, 112 yards, and a touchdown. And I swear I saw him at one point. We had TJ Searcy, one of our, outside linebackers / stand-up defensive ends, in a zone coverage on him on a play after we corner blitzed off of Restrepo and again, this is more of a defense thing, but just an example of get the Wilson the ball early and often. We didn't do it. Miami did it with their playmaker. We had a corner blitz one time, and meanwhile our safety's playing inside, like 5 yards inside of this, so he's got the entire area around the sideline, gets a catch for like 10 yards. Next play, we have TJ Searcy covering their best receiver, and that's not a knock on Searcy, but you got a quick wide receiver on a linebacker / defensive lineman hybrid. As Tony Stark would say, not a great plan. But anyways, our third key of the game that I had was to get vertical. And again, we weren't talking about deep shots, although it'd be great to see deep shots. And there were times we saw, those deep passing routes like the posts that we failed to connect. But what we didn't see was too many quick intermediate routes. Again, things that I thought Russ Callaway was bringing to his offense. And I said, this is what I think. And that's on me. I gave you bad info. I thought things were going to happen, and they have not happened. And we only had 14 completions, and some were down the field, but we had lots of completions beyond the line, and Miami was not respecting us at all. There are times I saw 6, 7 guys, maybe 8 guys in the box. Of course, I talked about earlier, our first third down, 8 guys on the line of scrimmage. Line of scrimmage. I'm not talking about the box. Line of scrimmage. And why do they feel they can do that? Because they don't respect us getting vertical at all. And of course, they made a bet and we couldn't make them pay for it. So that's on us. And we missed opportunities we had. And then DJ Lagway comes in. And I talked about Wilson had the ball twice in the first drive. And of course, get it to him early and often. And he only had 3 touches between the time that first drive happened and when Mertz went down. Lagway comes in, and in one drive, I believe it was Lagway's first drive, it might have been his second, we go down the field. And again, when I say down the field, I mean beyond the line of scrimmage. We hit Wilson on two straight slants. And I was happy with that. And Wilson got first downs or got big yards. Why did he do that? Because you're getting your playmaker the ball in space and letting him do what he needs to do. And that's what's kind of frustrating about it, is that, first one, and I'm looking it up as I'm on here doing this, 11 yards, second one, 16 yards. And that's how the drive started. And that's actually the drive where we ended up scoring a touchdown. And besides a, good touchdown run, but let's be honest, and I talked about this back in 2022, I don't want to call a big touchdown run fluky, but when you take away, a 71-yard run, and then you're running 3.6 yards per carry outside of that, it's good we got it. We didn't go back to that play too much, but in a big game, when lots of points are scored, we've got to run better than that. But I do give Montreal credit for getting 106 yards. But again, 71 of 106 on 11 carries. We're on one carry. Then you had 10 carries for 36. Our line had to do better, and we definitely need better. But good run for him. But we didn't really go back to that play after that, and that's kind of a head scratcher as well. DJ Lagway, 4 carries for 20 yards. He also threw 31 yards on 3 of 6. Mertz, however, 55%, 91 yards on 11 completions, 19.1 QBR, which is not good according to ESPN. And so for our offense, definitely not good. Not good at all. At the end of the day, we got 261 yards of offense. And as much as I like some of the things we saw from Lagway, when you come in and we're down by 28, they were definitely still playing hard on defense. They were definitely still having fun being up big on Florida. And, of course, Mario Cristobal trying to get more on this team, to be honest, trying to run up that score. Luckily, he did not. But we're talking about that's terrible offense, especially against a team whose secondary was questionable coming into this. And we'll see how they are throughout the season. They might have really improved their defense, or it might be the same so-so show that we've seen before, that we put up yards and some points at the end of the game when we're down by multiple scores, like we did against Utah last year, like we did against Kentucky last year, like we did against Georgia last year. And then we're using it to talk about averages later. And I do think DJ's going to be good. And I do think a lot of things he did were great, including, I talked about 27 yards on 2 straight slants to Wilson. And again, he didn't get the ball after that. So it really, really makes me question a lot of things going on with our offense. And on his, my buddy Sammy, and I'm sure those of you on Twitter have seen it, he's like, look at the Lagway pick. What do you think this is on? And what it looks like to me, if you can't, go find this tweet or pull up Lagway's pick on YouTube or something. And what it looks like is we're running an RPO. And I could be wrong. I don't know the play call, but it looks like we're running an RPO of a guard tackle counter. Essentially, what you do on that play, the guard and tackle on one side of the line, run and go run block on the far side of the long line when the ball is snapped. The problem is on this play, you're asking your center to go block, possibly, and on this exact play, 2 unblocked guys coming off the edge. I think that's, if you're running the ball, that's probably good. But for the option, if you're going for the pass, you're asking for your quarterback to have something go wrong. And of course we did. His hand gets hit a little bit, ball flies up, and there's an interception. But why is that an RPO in my mind? Because you just let two guys come off the edge and you're asking way too much of your center to try and calculate the triangulation to get a block on either one of them before they come unblocked to your quarterback. But hey, whatever. Our coach has chosen to call his own plays. Sounds like he's very dedicated to just doing his thing and not really listening to guys like perhaps Callaway who have put up top passing games elsewhere. Again, some of that is execution, like missing the post routes, and some of that is I still don't know the design of these plays when you're doing a guard tackle counter and you're making it part of an RPO. So if you pass, you've got one or multiple unblocked defenders running right at your quarterback while praying that your center can outrun an outside linebacker potentially. But hey, again, that's just what is on tape. Not really my opinion there. And so maybe you're upset. Maybe you want to go vent somewhere. Well, if you need to vent or want to talk with other Gator fans, of course, you can go to my friends at GatorChatter.com. And GatorChatter.com, it is a Gator message board, fan-owned, fan-driven message board. Lots of fun going on there right now. Of course, fun in Gator Nation is going on all over the place. But I will say this from Aaron Bland, who did appear on one of our Huddle Up Gator episodes, which if you've not checked out Huddle Up Gators, definitely do so. But he did say, considering all things, this board has been relatively good comparatively. So definitely check out Gator Chatter. Go there, join up, and join the conversation. It's definitely a good time. GatorChatter.com, your Florida Gator sports bar. Anyways, moving on, let's talk about the defense, where I had 3 keys. Of course, first key is stop the run, because if we can stop the run, that'll change the game. Well, you know what we couldn't do? Stop the run. 144 yards, especially on that first drive. It seemed like Damian Martinez could not be stopped. What I was shocked about, and I guess this is kind of in a good way, is that Damian Martinez only had 65 yards on 15 carries, 4.3 yards per carry. I could have sworn he had a lot more than that, but then again, it's just an interesting thing. He got the yards when he needed to, and we could not stop it when they needed to. I turned to my friend Vari, who also was on a Huddle Up Gears episode. Vari was watching the game with me in the row behind me, and I turned to him when Miami punted for the first time, and I said to Vari, I'm surprised they're not going for it because we can't seem to stop the running game. Now, we both agreed that the smart thing to do is not give us a chance to come back in that game. I will say this. It was the smart thing to do to not potentially give us momentum. With that said, what did we do on the first play after they punted? Well, we went one play, 71 yards for a touchdown. So they gave us the momentum early. And of course, how did we repay that momentum change? Led the march down 8 plays, 75 yards for a touchdown. The defense definitely is not as improved as we hoped. I think there are parts that probably are a little bit better, but are shaded by everything that is bad. And we'll see coming up as the schedule progresses. And we'll see when we find out, is this a great Miami team that just blew us out at home? Or is this a so-so Miami team that blew us out at home and we really don't know where we are? So we're going to see how we are going forward. We're going to see how this Miami team is going forward. But I would venture to say Cam Ward, 385 yards passing, that this is a good Miami team and having pretty easy comparative schedule where they could win 10, 11 games, maybe drop one in there and make the playoffs. So we will see, but definitely without stopping the run, it hurt this team. And of course, I talked about if you stop the run, it leads into factor number 2, which is harass Cam Ward, and that would cause turnovers. And let me tell you this, on the second drive, we did harass Cam Ward. And on the second drive, it did cause a turnover. Shout out to Cameron James, who didn't play too much last year, comes into the game and really had what I think is a great overall debut game. And I call it debut because he played a lot more snaps than I am used to seeing him out there. Cameron James, 23 snaps on the day, which is actually pretty good for this offense, especially for someone playing the defensive end position. And yeah, gets in the face of Cam Ward, causes the turnover, and then after that, we didn't do too much of that. Of course, had we done that, maybe he doesn't end up with 385 passing yards and completing 74.2% of his passes. Also had 3 runs, and it seems like he had a lot more because he made things happen with his feet running behind the line, like one of the touchdowns in the back of the end zone, south end zone, right in front of me. He's making plays with his feet to just keep the play alive, finds his receiver and hits it, but only 3 runs for 33 yards. And of course, a big one was on that first drive. Of course, talking about the defense in that first drive, could have held Miami to a field goal. Things that help momentum, and college football is a game of momentum. You've pretty much got them stopped, and you have and I don't even think it's questionable, a roughing the quarterback, undisciplined play from Justice Boone there, and definitely not something that you want to see. I would say, just to throw it out there, Justice Boone, 20 snaps, and stayed on the field after that penalty, which I thought was ridiculous. And that's a coaching thing. Ranked 27 out of 30 according to Pro Football Focus as far as his grade for the day, and wearing the number 1 jersey for the defense. Of course, I don't talk too much bad about our individual players on this podcast, but that was something that does need to be highlighted and does need to be pointed out. And I don't think it's talking bad to say Mertz missed some throws and do that, but I do think it may be considered bad to talk about a boneheaded decision to potentially give Miami momentum early when you had them stopped, and wearing the number 1 jersey as well, which of course is supposed to be a big deal at UF. And then we get to the third key item in the game, and which was solid tackling. Watching the game, I didn't feel like we missed a ton of tackles. I knew we missed some, but then going back and looking at it again, I'm like, wow, we really did have some missed tackles. According to Pro Football Focus, we had 11 missed tackles, and part of that 11 missed tackles, was was some big plays. But the thing that really stood out to me is when I think about games where we had missed tackles last year, I only look to compare these 2 games to see, is it something that maybe I'm just going nuts on, or is it something else? Is LSU and Missouri. Last year, those are 2 games. I think if you ask Gators where are the 2 games you think we tackled the worst, those would definitely be up there, in part because Mizzou, you have the video of Mitchell getting run over by Luther Burden as he tries to make a tackle. LSU, because Jaden Daniels, of course, running, passing, whatever, put up all kinds of yards on us. We had 11 missed tackles in this game. Mizzou last year, we had 12. LSU last year, we had 8. What that tells me is solid tackling has not improved. We definitely an area, if you're going to bring a guy like Ron Roberts, if you're going to fire, Coach Chaos, if you're going to fire Corey Raymond, and you're going to tell us we're bringing in a guy from Auburn, from Baylor who's going to watch Austin Armstrong and everything's going to be better. If we're going to bring in players who are 6-year guys like Asa Turner, we're going to do all sorts of things to make this defense better. I expect it to be better. And by the missed tackles number, it's not. And some of that is credit to Miami for being better than, many of us thought they could jump as much as they did. And we did not do what we should have done. And it is what it is. Not a great opener and not much for me to really praise. I wish I could praise more. It was good seeing Lagway get some reps. Unfortunate situation for it to come in. I will talk about what I think about that for the future and possibly this game coming up against Samford in our Samford preview. But for now, terrible, terrible opener. I did say it was a must win. We didn't win. And I am upset, as I know many in Gator Nation are, and I will not tell you should not be. As I said, this is 2-3, in the preview, as I've said on whether it's respect our decision when I was on there, whether it was on, 4th in Florida with my buddies from Plant the Spear and Knighted Ones, whether it was, on the Texas podcast or the Mississippi State podcast I came on, it was. I believe this defense and offense will be better. Here's why. And I believe Florida can get to 7 wins. And I predicted 7 wins on Respect Our Decision. Felt better as last week got on. Maybe it was just, preseason starting to feel good. And I predicted 8. But the last thing I'll say on this right now, and again, we'll see where we go, is after that Miami game, the Vegas line of 4.5 looks like a very good over-under, and I think that's unacceptable and disgusting at Florida. I put out a tweet after the game, which again is all I'm going to really say right now as far as trying not to be too negative, and trust me, that may be coming and you'll get it when it is. But I showed video I took after the Florida State game, video I took after the Miami game, and I said, you're 1-8 against rivals. You've lost by multiple scores at home 2 straight games to rivals. Maybe I didn't put that part, but that is part of it. But I said, here's what it looked like the last 2 home games. You're 1-8 against rivals. This is unacceptable. And I stand by that. But hopefully we've got better days ahead, Gator fans. Because I'll tell you, whether it's myself, whether it's Dave Waters, whether it's Gator Nation Football Podcast, Dave Surquist, check out his Huddle Up Gators, and Shelton at High Top Sports, or, the guys that Respect Our Decision, or in all kinds of weather, or, whoever. We all want it to be good, and we all want to give you a positive experience, all these Gator things. I know I've left out many great Gator content makers, but we all want to be positive. We all want to be optimistic. And I've talked to many of these guys in person. But when things like this happen, you've got to be able to call it unacceptable. I don't think it's doing anyone good to throw in the towel on the season right now. But I'm not going to blame anyone for doing it, because if you can't make the year 2 jump you usually see by year 3, and you're getting blown out by another 3rd-year head coach, it doesn't speak good things. But we'll see what happens. I'll talk about some things I think we'll see against Samford at that time. And in a way, being on here is a little bit therapeutic for me. So thank you for dealing with my rambling. I will say this about Saturday. It was good getting to meet some people, seeing Dave Soderquist again, meeting Dave Waters from Gators Breakdown, sitting with some friends from law school, including Vari, who was on Huddle Up Gators, my buddy Joey, being back in the swamp with the family again. So there are definitely fun things outside of sitting through a crappy game, things to appreciate. And that's one thing that that definitely, to keep in perspective, I've seen people on Twitter talking about let's not go to games anymore, let's send a message. I think that's a wrong thing to send, wrong message to send, because you show up to games to support your team and you show up to support the players. You may or may not care for a coach. And I'm not going to get into whether or not he should stay right now, because I said a good coach gets you to no worse than 6-1. So I will stick by that, and we will see if we get to that mark. If we don't, well, you know where I'm going. And it doesn't look likely, but we will see. For all we know, we're about to see a bunch of changes and see good things. So I'm not going to put anything out there for people to be like, don't give up hope. But I also think you need to show up at the swamp. You need to support the kids. And if that supporting kids means you've got a sign that you don't like the coach, have that sign. Let's be there, support the kids that have put a lot of time and effort, many away from their families, to play a game that we enjoy for a school we love. And that's really all I've got to say on that for now. But again, we will see how it turns out. But with that said, just like we do every week or every episode, thank you all for listening, and go Gators.